Your Best Manager, Episode 85. What I Learned from McDonald's About Employee Coaching. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Your Best Manager podcast, featuring interviews with senior managers and leadership experts, as well as practical advice for first-time managers. And after today's show, be sure to hop over to yourbestmanager.com and check out the What If Project. Starting June 1st, it's 30 days, 30 leadership tips, 30 baby steps, and 30 opportunities to become a different kind of manager. Have fun. You may not know this because I think I've probably only mentioned it on the podcast once or twice, but I met my wife, Christina, at McDonald's. I still remember the first time I noticed her, and I only use the word noticed because I doubt it was the first time that I actually saw her, but I do remember the first time that she stood out. We were both hired at the same time when a McDonald's restaurant decided to open up in our small town of Port Perry, Ontario, and we didn't really work together at first, just the way things work out, I suppose, but I do remember one night where she was going to work the overnight shift, and I was one of the closers that night and working until maybe 10:30, I think. She was in the crew room, waiting for her shift to start, dressed in black pants and a dark blue McDonald's sweater. I was washing dishes that night, but I remember looking up, seeing her, and thinking, she's cute. I hope I get to work with her sometime. Of course, I didn't talk to her or anything that night. I mean, what would I say? Hey, babe, that McDonald's blue looks really good on you. Right. See, that would be dumb. Instead, for some reason, I just locked that memory away in my head. It wasn't the same experience for Christina. I don't think she noticed me at all, but it would have been a couple of months later probably, and Christina had already been, at that point, promoted to what's called a crew trainer, and at the time, I was working in the back in the grill, but now I'd been selected to be cross-trained on customer service. Well, guess who was responsible for training me? Right. I got to hang out with Christina for a few shifts of intimate, my word, not hers, intimate training on how to smile, how to clean the customer's bathrooms, refill a ketchup dispenser, and take someone's order. As I got to know Christina, I thought she was pretty cool. And as she got to know me, she probably thought I was annoying. But I'll fast forward for the sake of time and relevance and just say that in the end, I think I won because we've now been married for almost 9 years. In fact, our 9th anniversary is just around the corner, July 1st, which some of you may know is Canada Day. So I like to joke that people everywhere in our country set off fireworks to celebrate us. Anyway, at this point, you may be wondering what on earth this cheesy story has to do with leadership. Hang tight, I'll get there. Despite the fact that my first job ever in high school introduced me to my future wife, I find that on late nights when Christina and I chat about where we've come from and how we got to where we are today, we often come back to our time at McDonald's, not because of the romance, and no, we weren't that couple making out in the back of the restaurant. At least that's the story we're telling, or not telling. Pretend I didn't say that. Both Christina and I worked at McDonald's for something like 5 or 6 years, and we both had the opportunity to rise the ranks from crew into management. And as a side note here, Christina is probably one of the best managers I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that because she is my wife, although I am biased, but she earned her way to second assistant store manager while in high school and was therefore a boss of mine. So I reported to her. She was my boss for a couple of years, and she was really good. Anyway, my point is that Christina and I got to experience the highly praised training that McDonald's is known for. Now, personally, I think that the food has gone downhill since we worked there, and there are times when I visit a McDonald's restaurant and receive terrible service. So I don't want to paint a picture that's unrealistically rosy, but Christina and I worked for great owners with a great management team, and we were put through some incredible training. So when I started to think about what to talk about on today's episode, which, by the way, is part of the series I've been running each Monday on the fundamentals of management. But when I started thinking about today's topic, which is coaching, I couldn't help but reflect back on my time at McDonald's. Because I still remember going through the crew trainer training program and the crew trainer training books. And I remember that it was through that training that I was first introduced to the concept of coaching. You see, coaching is different from training, but it was a crew trainer's responsibility to train and to coach. And coaching is also different from mentoring. It's different from managing. It's different from leading. However, An effective coach is often an effective leader, often an effective manager, and often an effective trainer as well. So what I want to talk about on today's show is what's the difference between each of those titles? Like, what exactly is a coach? Why is it important? And how do you do it properly? Let's start with the definition. And I really wish that I had my crew trainer handbook and the training material from high school, because I'd love to look back at it just to be reminded of how simple but effective those principles of, I don't know, I don't want to say people management, but similar to Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, McDonald's training was built off of the same foundation of simply treating people well. And here's another side note. Leadership is often overcomplicated. Whether you are a first-time manager listening now or a senior executive, the principles of leadership never stray from taking a genuine interest in the betterment of others. That's what Dale Carnegie talked about, and that's the type of customer service that McDonald's was built upon, taking genuine interest in the betterment of others. If you can do that, prioritize that, commit to that, everything else just kind of falls in place. All right, so although I don't have my original training materials from, 14, 15 years ago when I started at McDonald's, I did find a website that had posted a few things from the crew trainer training program or training manual in 2014, and lo and behold, it included a definition of coaching. And it's brilliant, spot on, and aligned with any other definition of coaching you'll find anywhere. And so the content actually reads, what's your role as a coach? And the answer is encourage and support trainees, correct behaviors outside of training, complementing good behaviors, and encouraging the crew to smile. So we've got encouragement, support, feedback, both corrective and affirming, and a responsibility to reset focus. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to dive into a deep comparison of management versus training versus coaching versus leading, but I'm going to define each of those titles really quickly. Managing is about results, performance, measurement, and evaluation. Training is about sharing knowledge, explaining why, showing how, and monitoring for consistent execution. Coaching, as I'll talk about further in a moment, is about helping others execute on what they already know so that they can reach their potential. And I'll define leading, at least in this context, because I've got to be careful how I define leadership, since I've already mentioned how complicated we can make it. But leading is about decision-making in harmony with training, managing, and coaching. Make sense? As I said, I'm taking the McDonald's definition that I just shared, and I'm simplifying it to say that a coach is someone who helps others execute on what they already know so that they can reach their potential. I'm going to give two examples here, and then we'll talk about why this is so important. First of all, if you've already joined the What If Project, this is exactly the message I am sharing, and this is exactly the purpose of the complementary different program that I'm building. And I'll take 20 seconds here to remind you that the price for different is continuing to go up by $10 a day. So if you haven't joined yet, I do give you my permission to pause this episode and hop over to yourbestmanager.com/today to take advantage of low pricing. It's a $997 8-week leadership development program I'm putting together. And it was available for just $10 on June 1st. And some of you early birds grabbed it that day. But on the day this episode is released, June 5th, the different program is now costing $50. And tomorrow, June 6th, it will be $60. So, yeah. And if you haven't registered for the What If Project, start there. And you can do that at yourbestmanager.com/whatif. But as I was saying, both the What If Project and the different program are designed to provide not just training, but more importantly, coaching. If you are listening today, you likely already have the knowledge and the pieces required to be a great leader. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that you should care about people. You don't need me to tell you that you shouldn't avoid tough conversations, but rather you should embrace those tough conversations as opportunities to make a difference and improve performance. You don't need me to tell you that. And you don't need me to tell you that goal setting with your employees can be incredibly powerful. You know these things already. The challenge often comes with leadership on execution. And the What If Project is about making little tiny changes every day so that executing on those types of responsibilities can be easier or more natural, because What if managers actually did the things they know they should do? That's the What If Project, and the different leadership development program is the same concept. I'm not teaching anything new through this leadership development program. I'm being a coach. I'm building a program that will help the members, the students, if you will, execute on the things they already know. Sure, there'll be training involved to expand some knowledge, but the core content and the core purpose is to coach students through becoming better leaders, different leaders. And that's why time management and productivity are going to be such a heavy component to this program. And that's also why performance management, like correcting behavior and how to have tough conversations, is also going to be a heavy component. And that's also why I'm building in support and access to me for Q&A and application of it, so that it's not just hey, watch a video, learn a lesson, and good luck, but it's active training and then it's active coaching. Because we all know what needs to get done. And we all know when a tough conversation is warranted. So if those are areas, if anything I've been talking about, if those are areas where you want to get better, then you don't need a trainer, you don't need a manager, you don't need a leader, you need a coach. You need someone or something to help you execute on the right behaviors, to help you find the time or find the courage to be the leader that you already know you can be. Now, as I've alluded to, a coach does still train. They do still manage or monitor performance, and they do still lead, which is why I consider coaching to be a manager fundamental. Because if you want to become a leader, you need to be a good manager first. And being able to train your people, like I talked about last week, and being able to coach your people, like we're talking about today, are important skills to learn and apply in conjunction with all the other attributes that make up the foundation of great leadership. And the second example I'm going to share is in reference to a book written by Timothy Galway called The Inner Game of Tennis, the classic guide to the mental side of peak performance, which, although I must admit I have not actually read, you probably know as well as I do that the concept of mastering the inner game is highly praised, and it's become almost commonplace in sports coaching. In fact, Galway has written a number of books now on the topic, including The Inner Game of Work, The Inner Game of Stress, The Inner Game of Golf, and The Inner Game of Music. And just so you know, every resource that I mentioned, including all these books, I'll just make links available on the show notes, which will be at yourbestmanager.com/85. So if any of these book titles are books you want to check out, you can go there and I'll have the links so you can find out more information on them. But the overall concept is this. The concept of the inner game is this. The biggest obstacles to obtaining peak performance is internal, not external. That if you can master the inner game, the self-talk components of how we operate, then you can translate that internal performance to external physical performance. The original tennis example talks about how a tennis player might be thinking too much during a game. During every swing, after every play, just thinking about body positioning, thinking about the different angles, thinking about small movements in the wrists or the hips or weight transfer. Now, I'm not a tennis player, but I've played many sports and I get it. Golf is another great example, actually, because I've played golf, so it makes more sense to me. There are many times where I will be in the middle of my backswing. So I've got the club almost above my shoulders, and I'll look down and I'll notice that my feet may not be perfectly positioned. And what do you think happens in that moment? Both distraction and hesitation, often resulting in a poor follow-through and a poor shot. But here's the thing, for me at least. I've been playing golf since I was little. I've taken lessons, and because I started young, I have a really good swing. I don't play often enough or well enough to be really competitive, but I know what I'm doing. And if I just swing the club rather than think about what I'm doing, I'm more likely to make a good shot just because of muscle memory and repetition. And so while a trainer may teach a tennis player or a golfer how to swing the racket or how to swing the golf club, a coach helps a player, maybe they make a couple tweaks, but they help a player to execute on what they already know how to do. So to go back to the McDonald's definition for coaching, a coach encourages and supports. They correct behaviors, which actually gives the idea of reminders, not instruction. Instruction would be training, while reminders or corrections would be coaching. So they encourage and support, they correct behaviors, they compliment good behaviors, and they encourage the crew to smile. Okay, wait, maybe that only applies to customer service. Although, wouldn't it be really funny if athletes smiled constantly? Like, I'm just imagining like a really tough like hockey game where, I don't know, everyone's just like super intense, but their intensity turns into smiles. I don't know, I think that'd be really entertaining. Anyway, so no, the coach encourages the player or the coachee to put on the fundamental confidence that produces good results. So for the athlete, it's not to smile, it's an encouragement to have fun, to remove distractions, and to trust his or her body. And for the customer support professional, well, yeah, it's to smile, because if the customer support professional can, instead of thinking about all the things that are distracting them, just think about smiling, they're just going to do their job better. But the point is that when you, as a coach, can shift an employee's mind from what's distracting them to something helpful, something that reinforces good behavior and leads to proper execution, that's when you will be effective. This is so good, right? And that's because this type of coaching, this legit, real coaching, can be so powerful. It's about meeting your employees where they are at. It's about trust and confidence. It's about influence. It's not about forcing your will. It's not about being a dictator, but it's about helping people do what they already know how to do so that they can reach their potential. It's brilliant. It's effective. And I think the why behind this, the why part of this discussion then is quite obvious. Why should managers develop coaching skills? Because sometimes that's what your employees need. Sometimes they need training. Sometimes they need to be told what to do, when to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. That's training, and that's what we covered last week. Sometimes your employees need management. Sometimes they need to be pushed to produce results. Sometimes they need to be evaluated and told where they stand. Sometimes they need direction. Sometimes they do need work to be delegated to them, and they need metrics and management. Sometimes they need management. And then sometimes they need to be led. Sometimes they need someone to show them the way, to take them somewhere they haven't been before. That's leadership. Someone to make decisions, someone to open doors and either walk them to the door, walk them through the door, or push them through the door. And sometimes they need coaching. They need encouragement. They need support. They need corrective reminders. They need to be told they are doing a good job, and they need to be refocused on what's important, whether that's to smile, to have fun, or to simply trust their gut. But the difficult part to all this is, well, to actually put on the right hat in the right situation. Which one is it? Is it the manager? Is it the leader? Is it the trainer? Is it the coach? Which one? And I mean, there are so many different hats that we'll put on as managers, and often the coaching hat is actually left hanging in the locker room. If you listen to episode 66 with Lolly Daskal, you may remember that one of the archetypes she describes in her new book, The Leadership Gap, is the navigator. And as a reminder, a navigator is someone who is a good problem solver, someone who understands what needs to be done, someone who knows where to go next. However, every navigator has a gap, which is the fixer. And this is extremely common among managers. Most managers are problem solvers. They know how to do things properly. They are good at the day-to-day tasks. They're high performers. That's why they're managers in the first place. That's why you are a manager, because you are good at your job. But since you are good at your job, isn't it tempting to step in and fix things rather than let one of your employees figure it out on their own? Right. But the act of coaching involves very little movement from the manager. It's not about stepping in and taking over. It's about getting other people to make those moves. Now, I'm not going to think for a second that in the few minutes that remain on today's episode that I'll be able to teach you everything about how to recognize the right opportunities to coach and show you how to properly coach your people. I mean, that's why leadership coaching exists. That's why I do what I do. That's why I teach my shoulder-to-shoulder philosophy. That's why I'm developing the different program. Because becoming a true leader isn't about quick fixes. It's about operating differently than most managers currently are, and that can be difficult. So I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say that I can teach you how to be a coach in the next 5 minutes. But I do have some good news to share with you. And before I do share that, I have a very simple suggestion that can actually make this whole coaching thing easier. Become an inquisitive manager. The best leaders are those who ask great questions, and those great leaders are also great coaches. And I've actually got a mini ebook on this subject that you can download from my website if you are interested in, and maybe you're listening, you already have this ebook, but it's called The Inquisitive Manager, 10 questions that will make you a better leader instantly. The point is that the more questions you ask, scratch that, the more intentional you are with the questions you ask, the easier it will be to assess where your employees are at when it comes to confidence and competence on any given task. And this is something that I talked about actually on day 2 of the What If project. But the clearer you are on the development level of your employees related to the tasks that they have been given, the easier it will be to assess when it's time to put on that trainer cap and therefore get back to the basics, or when you should put on that coaching hat and give them the encouragement, the support, and the feedback they need to execute on what they already know. And here's the good news I promised. Despite the challenges of knowing how to lead in each situation, knowing when to teach, when to manage, when to coach, when to direct, this is the good news. And this is the final word of encouragement I want to give you today. This is good news for you, someone who wants to be a better leader. And this is also good news for the employees that you are responsible for leading. The good news is that although leadership is hard, it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it. And you are capable. You have it in you. The mere fact that you are listening to a leadership podcast right now tells me that in most circumstances, you know what to do. And in most cases, you already know how to do it. I've been your trainer on maybe a few things over the past 20-ish minutes or so. But as your coach right now, I want you to leave with this. Just have fun. And as I've already mentioned, if you can take a genuine interest in the betterment of others, if you can do that, prioritize that, commit to that, well, everything else just kind of falls in place. Thanks for listening. All right, everyone, that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Now hop over to yourbestmanager.com and take advantage of the free tools, resources, and training which I've created exclusively for you, the next generation of leaders. Oh, and have fun. Hey there, I've actually just got one last thing I wanted to share with you real quick. I mentioned on the show today both the What If project and the Different Leadership Development Program. And so before you go, I just wanted to leave those links with you so that you can go find out more information and check both of those out. So if you are interested in more information on the free What If project, you can go over to yourbestmanager.com/whatif. And if you are interested in learning more about the Different Leadership Development Program and potentially become a founding member, you can go over to yourbestmanager.com/today.